Okay, folks, we have two more panels to go, but right now we have a longtime supporter of South Wireless Summit, and his name is Todd Schlekeway. Todd typically has the primetime morning slot. We just couldn't pay him enough this year, so now he's moved to the afternoon slot. But nonetheless, Todd is the president and CEO of NATE, which is a key organization in our industry, as you know. Todd provides overall leadership and strategic vision for NATE's 1,115 members. Prior to joining NATE, Todd worked for 7 years as the founder of communication firm Full Court Strategies. Todd also has extensive policy experience, having served 2 terms in the South Dakota State Legislature, where he represented Sioux Falls in both the State House and the State Senate. Todd received his undergraduate degree and master's degree from the University of Sioux Falls, where he also played on the basketball team. Todd and his wife Jill live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, with their 3 sons, Galvin, Grant, and Jet. Let's give a warm welcome to Todd. Todd Schlekeway.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig and Steve. Can everybody hear me? You guys all get extra credit for hanging in there after the night on Broadway last night, coming to a mid-afternoon session. So appreciate you being here. Steve and Craig and the event organizers with South Wireless Summit. I hope you know that you can always count on NATE to support your event. I always make sure that this one is blocked off on my calendar because of the content, the networking opportunities, but also, and I'm going to get into this towards the end, how charitable your group is to the industry. So thank you. My intent today is just to do a brief overview of kind of a state of play from a contractor's perspective. NATE has about 1,100 member companies. We have members in all 50 states, but our core membership, as all of you are aware, are the contractors, the communications infrastructure contractors. So I'm going to give you kind of a state of play, what I'm hearing from them, you know, what their last year and a quarter has been like. So first of all, I'm not going to belabor this. If you say, Todd, what type of phone calls are you getting every day from contractors? What does your email inbox get flooded with? These are some of the issues right now. Many of them were discussed earlier today, but these are it's not an exhaustive list, but I'm telling you, these are some of the issues that I'm hearing the most from. And, you know, we're bullish, as like the experts, Alex and all of them are, on when this thing could turn around. But it has been a very difficult year on the wireless side from a CapEx perspective. I've going on 12 years with NATE, and it's hands down the most difficult year on the wireless side. And it was kind of the perfect storm that developed. But we're going to stay optimistic and navigate this as best we can. What are the opportunities? So one of the things you're going to start to hear NATE preach more and more is this concept of business diversification, customer diversification. Many of your companies are already branched out of traditional line and antenna, macro tower work, but we also have a lot of small contractors that are having a hard time right now, frankly, keeping the doors open because their customer base are carriers and they're doing line and antenna work. And that's a difficult place to be in right at this moment as we sit here on March 26th, 2024. So what we did at our conference in February is for the first time, and we're going to grow this every year, but we hosted a series of customer diversification, business diversification workshops. And so we had the FAA came in. They have 2 years worth of massive tower replacement projects they're working on throughout the country the next 2 years. And so they did a presentation on, it's called UIS Communication Tower Project, how to get onboarded with them, because that could be an opportunity. These are demolition and full replacements of FAA-owned towers. We had the electric EV infrastructure community come in and do a workshop. Many of your companies are already working in that sector, but again, the small contractors who make up the lion's share of our membership, they don't even know where to begin. How do you break into that? And if you have civil and electrical crews in your company, that is a very good opportunity for you, the EV charging market. So, you know, we hosted a workshop on that. The fiber, everyone's talking about BEAD, I'll get into that as well, but we did a fiber deployment 101 workshop at our conference. That's an opportunity. We have a barter with Safer Buildings Coalition, and they do a lot of public safety, wireless, building code work, and they're telling me that one opportunity for in-building in the future that's going to be driven by building codes primarily is in-building wireless installs. And so think about those opportunities. Obviously, we heard earlier today about the private LTE 5G networks. So there are other opportunities, but it behooves a company, a small contractor company, to really try to position themselves to branch out of traditional just carrier work. Okay, safety. Many of you know NATE was formed in 1995, and our first pillar, our first priority is safety, and that rings true today. Fast forward, we're getting ready to celebrate our 30th year as a trade association next year, and safety is still our core priority, and it always will be. I want to walk you through a few safety metrics. First off, so we had about 172 contractors that are members of NATE participate last year in our STAR program. And what is that? They agreed to do voluntary site safety audits on a certain percentage of their sites every quarter. They submit them to NATE. Their data is protected and confidential per their company, but what we do is we aggregate the data total, and it allows us to get just kind of a pulse on what are the deficiencies in the industry. But this is an overall snapshot of how many audits these 172 companies performed last year. 3,855 audits. They identified and corrected 1,049 deficiencies. And again, this is just a small pool of 172 companies. So we're trying to grow this program each year moving forward. And this is significant because we're using the STAR program to get data for our NATE OSHA FCC national partnership. So in December of 2023, we were in Washington, D.C. We signed a 5-year extension, NATE did, with OSHA and the FCC. You can see Chairwoman Rosenworcel there, Commissioner Carr from the FCC, some of OSHA's leaders. So we signed a 5-year extension of this partnership. And why is 5 years significant? It's because it's going to transcend anything that happens with the presidential election, and we're not going to be beholden, whoever gets in the White House, and to a new OSHA that comes in, a new FCC, our partnership will still go. And so what we're doing with this partnership is we have task teams set up, and we're collecting data from the insurance industry. We're collecting data from our members through the STAR Initiative program. We're collecting data from the tower owner companies, the GCs, and we have a group that's kind of extrapolating it all, putting it into different buckets, and then we're going to turn that into some education and training resources. But the nice thing about having the FCC involved is it has brought the carriers to the table. We have some participation from them that, frankly, we probably wouldn't if we didn't have the FCC a part of that. And this is a hard slide to read. I don't expect you to read it. I just wanted to show you an example of what type of things we're monitoring, you know, that are coming from the OSHA reports, the GC incidents, the audit deficiencies. And this is the type of data that this task team that was formed is working on. And it just goes to show you that there's a lot of work yet to be done. You know, for as more professional and safe the industry has got, there's still work to be done. And we don't rest until everyone goes home safe every night. Okay, I got permission to use this slide. This was presented at our conference in Memphis. And major vertical real estate tower owner company, we all know, I'm not going to say who, but they allowed me to use this slide. They did an analysis of their sites where they had what they call them serious concerns. These are deficiencies. These are things that happen that either compromise safety, compromise the structure, compromise something on site. So the reason I wanted to show this slide is I thought it was interesting. Okay, 45% of the sites with serious concerns, the prime on that site was not a NATE member. But look what happens when you go down a sub, go down a layer. So now we're the sub of the GC. 72% of the sites with serious concerns, the sub was not a NATE member. And then look what happens when you go sub of a sub. 93% of the sites. And this is a major customer, okay? This is a major player in this industry who has data forever. And what I'm saying is, are all NATE members created equal? Absolutely not. I'd love to be able to sit up here and say all 1,100 do everything right every single day in the field. I can't say that. But what I am saying is, the hardest companies for us to get as members, and we have some of our leaders, Jordan and Stephanie from our Member Services Committee here, they'll tell you it's hard to get at these really small companies that do sub work. If we can't get them under our umbrella as a NATE member, it's harder for us to impact them through getting them access to our standards, safety resources, the training that goes on. So that is a very telling slide, in my opinion. What happens to safety when there's multiple layers on a site? And this is a company who has thousands of vendors and contractors they work with every day. This right here, I want to spend a few minutes on this. We have a safety equipment manufacturing committee within NATE. We have a partnership with the University of Dayton Research Institute. That's that logo on the bottom there. So this is probably, if you said what are the top 3 things NATE's investing in and doing, most important, SEMC would be on the list. What they do is they gather at this Dayton Research Institute and they do testing on different fall protection equipment, safety products in the industry, and the whole goal is to make the industry safer for the men and women working at heights. And ultimately, what they do is they produce white papers, research that we're hoping are going to migrate or find their way into some of these national consensus standards that exist in the industry. So the testing that the group's doing this year is going to be carabiners used in material handling, and then next year they're going to test synthetic ropes used in material handling. But this is very, very worthy of the industry's attention and investment because of the work they're doing. All right. One of my favorite projects we do at NATE every year is we have a Climber Connection video series, and it's topical. It's aimed at the technician workforce, but it's topical. It's really creative. We get a lot of eyeballs on these, and so I'm going to play the newest one. We're going to wait till after Easter to send this out in a press release. I always use South Wireless Summit as a launch point for one of our videos. This is our most recent video that we're going to launch after Easter on electrical safety awareness. So let's watch it. Oh, go back.
Hello, friends. Working with electricity comes with the territory. If you're not safe, you're not going to have a good day. Ready to talk electrical safety? Let's go. In today's Climber Connection, we're going to cover some of the basics in electrical safety. I'm here with Corey Manus, VP of Operations for True North Management Services. Working closely with Nate, he's helped develop the electrical safety awareness training curriculum. Corey, we know the hazards of working around power lines, but tell us a few of the highlights.
Thanks, Sean. Well, working with mobile elevated work platforms like a bucket truck or a man lift, it's important that you maintain minimum approach distance, or MAD. It's very important that you measure that distance using a laser rangefinder or possibly a fiber stick to make sure that you're keeping that minimum approach distance.
When you're working around power lines, it's important to have a spotter, right? Tell us about that.
Spotters are definitely important when you're working around power lines or you're working around moving equipment. It's important that you understand the minimum approach distance, but it's also important that you know what the equipment operator is doing at all times. You have to be able to communicate with them directly, and you also have to have only one job. As a spotter, you can't be doing anything else but spotting.
Okay, let's say you come across a down power line. What should you do?
Well, it really depends on the situation. If you're in a vehicle or on a piece of equipment, you should stay put. Don't move. It's very important that you don't get out of the vehicle or get off the piece of equipment. You could get electrocuted. If you're walking and you come across some power lines or you're on site and some down power lines are noticed, it's important that you keep a 35-foot distance away from them and call 911 immediately. You can also notify the electric company, but 911 will do so if they need to.
And what about overhead hazards?
Well, overhead hazards are another obstacle that you need to be fully aware of, such as tree limbs hanging or a broken tree limb hanging on a power line. It could be a gutter hanging off of a building. But you have to understand that those hazards could be down the line and could cause a hazard that could electrocute an individual if they touch a metal object that is touching the power lines.
And for workers in this situation, is there any special PPE they should need?
Well, it depends on the type of work that they're performing. It's very important that they use what is called a stray voltage detector when they're working on or near power lines. You have to have that piece of equipment with you so you can check to see if any metal appurtenances are live and have electricity flowing through them. It's also important to wear the typical PPE, hard hats, gloves, safety glasses, just like always.
Tower techs often install telecom electrical equipment. What are some of the safety rules they need to know in that situation?
Most electrical telecom equipment is either neg 48 volt DC or 24 volt DC. It's important that they test before they touch when they're working with this kind of equipment and understand if there is a live piece of equipment in front of them. It's also important for them to use safety glasses, make sure that they use gloves, and if they have to, they use insulated tools when they're working near these batteries or DC plants.
Okay, Corey, next topic, batteries. Handling DC power is way different than handling AC power, right?
Well, to handle AC power, you have to be a master electrician or a journeyman electrician in most cases. There are situations where you can be a qualified electrical employee. To handle anything below 50 volts nominal voltage per OSHA, you don't have to be a qualified electrical employee, but it is important, I think, that your company offers you training on how to perform that type of work correctly. And when you're working near batteries, you always need to understand that there are several different types of cells out there. You can have liquid acid battery cells, or you can have lithium ion batteries or nickel cadmium batteries. All of those batteries have different rules when you're talking about cleanup and trying to protect yourself from them with PPE.
Talked about neg 48. Let's check out this panel over here.
Sure.
So I noticed in this PowerPoint you got two rows here. You got a neg 48 and you got a positive 24.
There's two different types of voltages in this piece of equipment in particular. Most of the time you're going to have one system that's either neg 48 or positive 24. In this case, there's both. However, you have breakers that are on the positive 24 and breakers that are on the neg 48. It depends on what type of equipment you're operating. And in this case, you have rectifiers here and batteries here that supply the power to the DC power plant.
And what do the rectifiers do?
Well, the rectifiers are actually connected to the AC power panel on the wall. And what happens is the AC power comes into the back of the rectifier and it's converted to DC power, and then it's sent to the breakers to be able to power the equipment on the tower.
So if the crew is changing out an RRU up top, what does the ground guy need to do in the power plant to help them out?
Well, it's very important that you cut the breaker off first and foremost. Anytime you're working on live equipment, you want to turn the breaker off so that there's no risk of electrocution. It's also important that you lock out, tag out if necessary. But in this case, you turn off the breaker and you allow the technician to do the work that they have to do on top of the tower.
So if you have a problem with the power, what's the best way to troubleshoot it?
Well, it's important to have a digital multimeter with you in your truck. If you have a digital multimeter, you can troubleshoot the voltage that's coming to the equipment, and you can also troubleshoot to make sure that the batteries are connected properly and the breakers are connected properly.
So if the site loses power, how long will the batteries last on the backup?
It really depends on the amount of equipment that is installed, but it could be anywhere from 4 hours to 10 hours. It completely depends on what type of equipment and how much of it is installed on the tower.
Probably the number of batteries you have as well.
That makes a big difference.
Corey, I appreciate you taking the time to school us on electrical safety.
You got it, Sean.
You can check out the library of training material on the NATE website. That's where you're going to find the electrical safety curriculum. Always be aware of the hazards when you're dealing with electrical power. That's all we got for today. Thanks for watching and stay safe.
I always like to devote my presentations to one of those videos because the tower techs aren't always going to read a safety resource or white paper, but they'll watch those videos on their phone. And so it's a really good way to reach that younger workforce. And so they've been successful. One of the next videos we're coming out with under the Climber Connection video is on the topic of fraudulent certifications. So that will be interesting. Should get a lot of eyeballs. Okay, real brief, legislative and regulatory. NATE is very active like WIA and some of the other trade associations in D.C. I'm not going to go down the list here, but these are some of the issues we're tracking on. Patrick talked about it this morning, and it is very important. NATE is one of the trade associations. Most of the telecom associations have challenged the FCC's digital discrimination order. Why is that important? I mean, we all support the FCC's goal to connect everybody, regardless of where they live, what their demographic is. We're all in lockstep on that. But in that order, contractors are listed as covered entities. And so Todd's Towers, if I'm a contractor company, I could get fined if they say that I didn't bring service to a certain community or certain demographic. When, what do I rely on it as a contractor? I have the government agencies, state, local, municipal, federal, tell me when I can build through permitting, right? And then the customers, the carriers and tower owners are telling me when and where I build. So how in the world can contractors be accused of discriminating by not bringing service somewhere when kind of at the mercy of other layers in the industry? And so that's why NATE decided to challenge that order. The spectrum, you know, Alex talked about it, Patrick talked about it. It is the lifeblood, and one of the reasons for the slowdown is there is no spectrum right now in the pipeline. And NATE members are the ones, it's all valuable, billions of dollars worth of airways, but it's not, it doesn't translate into this until someone flips the switch. And more often than not, it's our members who do that. And so that's really hurting right now, the spectrum. And you see the other issues we're tracking right here as well. We have a pretty active presence on Capitol Hill. That was a picture from our fly-in last May. We have a wireless industry network that's kind of our grassroots arm. So we have state liaisons in all 50 states. We have regional ambassadors, and we use the WIN network to help advocate for our issues at the grassroots level. And so we're really happy at the traction we've made in D.C. That photo was taken in the Mansfield room, which is just steps off the Senate chambers in the U.S. Capitol. So that was from our fly-in last year. And then one of our most powerful advocacy tools that we use in our arsenal is we do tower site visits with members of Congress. There's a few brave ones who actually want to climb, but more often than not, we bring a crew out there to visit with a contractor, a crew, and the member of Congress. They try on the equipment. They get a feel for what life is like when they're climbing with 50, 60 pounds worth of equipment. We've had a lot of success with these tower site visits. We're in the process of scheduling 4 or 5 more with members of Congress here this spring and summer. So very, very, very powerful for NATE. We've made a lot of headway on those. Real quick on workforce development. The last panel really did a good job covering workforce development, so I'm going to be brief. NATE has our own Tower Tech 1 curriculum. It can be offered for credit, non-credit, or apprenticeship. And so what we do is we partner with community colleges. So right now, we have those colleges on the screen are either offering a program or getting ready to, and they're running our turnkey curriculum. It's available turnkey. And so Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College is actually hosting a ribbon cutting, I think on April 11th. They're the next one up. But if you have relationships with tech schools or community colleges in your region, let us know, because we have a team that meets with them, and then we try to pair our local members, employers with those schools. And the curriculum's turnkey. It's ready-made once you get the instructor. So it's really good. We have marketing resources for colleges who join NATE. You can see some of them there. We help them with their marketing, recruiting. So it's kind of a whole turnkey package that we have to offer. Couple other things. The last panel touched on the importance of awareness. We are leveraging the Vertical Freedom movie that was produced a couple years ago. We're still getting mileage out of that. We're hosting broadband wireless career awareness events throughout the country. This one was from an event in South Florida. The gentleman, the bottom right picture is Dr. Gemma Frock, that's NATE's workforce consultant, and then Sean Lewis, who's the Florida broadband director. And then you have Sean Gilhooly, who you just saw in the video. He was featured in Vertical Freedom. He visited and kind of did a demo on the equipment. Another one I'm excited about is a partnership with the Industry and Junior Achievement of South Florida. So this is something that Junior Achievement was at our conference in Memphis at NATE Unite, and they are looking into a pre-apprenticeship program in South Florida. And that really is the tough group to get into. How do you get to the high school kids, right, before they make their decisions on where they're going to go to college or go into the workforce? And Junior Achievement, because of how they're positioned, there's not as much bureaucracy there than there is with tech schools and four-year schools, okay? So it's a really good program that we're going to try to cultivate in some certain markets around the country to elevate our industry, leveraging Junior Achievement, what they're planning. National Tower Tech Appreciation Day. So every year during the week of the NATE OSHA National Safety Stand Down, we do a Tower Tech Appreciation Day. It gets bigger every year. We get proclamations from members of Congress. And this year it's Wednesday, May 8th. So I wanted to note it. We have a lot of members who like to do appreciation days for their employees, for their elevated workers those days. So I'm just noting it. Save the date. National Tower Tech Appreciation Day is Wednesday, May 8th. Okay, Nate asks, and I'm almost done. How can the industry support NATE? We go on a C-suite tour every year where we visit the top carriers and tower owners, and some of these asks are directly from what we ask them. You know, we'd love NATE membership to be included in the customers' MSAs. You know, that would move the needle. U.S. Cellular does it. We'd love all of them to do that, because that can, over time, elevate safety and quality. Not only safety, but the quality of the networks. You know, you can read them. I'm not going to go down the list, but we have an ask that we have for our major customers every time we go meet with them, and it's really important to get in front of them every year, because they need to know the state of the industry from a contractor's perspective. Okay, charity. I'm going to wrap up with this. Our industry is, one of the things I love about this industry is we're charitable, okay? I was just talking to Bill about music movement and how the industry's come alongside that. Great charity. There's a couple that NATE are really specifically involved with. In South Wireless, you and your scholarship programs, your charity, just so generous. I wanted to touch on real briefly the Tower Family Foundation. That's a 501c3 nonprofit that NATE started in 2014. It's going on 10 years now. So it's going on a decade of support for industry workers and families. This picture is better than any bullet points I could have put up. All right, this picture was taken at our conference in Memphis, and a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So you have the NATE board of directors huddled around the Hawkins family. Okay, so this is Lacey. She lost her husband in a at Heights fall 6-7 years ago. Lacey immediately after that received a check for $15,000 right away. The mother paid for the funeral. She received a check from the Tower Family Foundation. Kristen just graduated from nursing school, and she received $10,000 scholarship to the Tower Family Foundation. So why did I show this photo? That family was the benefactor of $30,000 from the foundation during a time of beyond tragic circumstances. And yet you have Kristen, who's thriving, and she is a very personable young lady. We're very proud, but they joined us, and we acknowledged them and honored them at our conference in Memphis. But it's the industry it's not the Tower Family Foundation's the conduit, it's the industry who gave that money to. And many of your companies in the room, you guys did that. So thank you. And then the very last charity I wanted to touch on that Nate's involved with as well, we have a partnership with the Three Strands Global Foundation. They're based out of Sacramento, California, okay? What they started a telecom branch, because the whole concept is, look, when you have contractors in all 50 states and you have their tower crews traveling, staying overnight in hotels, stopping at rest stops, we're on the front lines of being able to see some things that go on in this country and world that frankly aren't good, right? And so Telecommunications Against Trafficking and Exploitation is a free training program and that you can take your employees through. We encourage companies to do it as part of their employee onboarding, like during the hiring process or after they've been hired when you're onboarding them. And right now, 1,279 folks in the industry, employees, have gone through the certification. That encompasses 151 companies. They're from 45 different states and 4 countries. But it's free to do. It's a series of videos, and then there's a test at the end. You get RAN certified, so it's called Recognition and Notification. And they teach you what to look out for and how to respond and how to call, what number to call. We're trying to grow this, so keep this in mind for your onboarding of your companies. And then lastly, plan to join us. We're in Raleigh next year. Raleigh's always a great spot. A lot of engineering talent there, a lot of contractors. Tower owner companies are based there, so we're excited to host our 30th anniversary Nate Unite next February in Raleigh. So thank you very much. And again, Steve and Craig, thanks for your hospitality.